while we are here, let me just quickly give a shout out to two desks which are outside. If you haven't seen it yet, there is a desk outside where they have a translation game. They're talking about how important it is to talk about scientific discourse in traditional languages and in regional languages. So go check it out. They have a game. There's a part 1 and a part 2. And you can also take part in the storytelling board which is there. On the left, if you go in front of exhibition 19, you have break free from plastic. They have a lot of material there which you can pick up. They have Devyani there from that side. You can also ask her for more details about what they do. Thanks to both of them for the effort that they're putting into supporting the SJAI conference number 3. Right, now before we go, let's just quickly address the fact that there were multiple answers given to the challenge that I had issued during the lunch. But we have 2 winners, so let's say, first of all is Aditi Ghosh. Are you here, Aditi? The first person to win. We got all 5. After that was Priyamada. I saw that right at the back. Priyamada was also there. So both of them get a small prize from me. They were able to figure out that the 5 titles were Comfortably Numb, Another Brick in the Wall, Fearless, Great Day for Freedom, and High Hopes. So thank you, and you should get your prizes soon. But now it's time to get back onto the agenda. So we have another panel right now, and it's Synth Meet Interdisciplinary Synthetic Biology. And I'd like to call upon stage. We have already Shirsendu on stage with us, joining us virtually. And on stage, may I ask Taslim Arif, Anu and Pooja to come on stage, please. And let's get the panel started. Again, request to those who come back from lunch, please put your phones on silent or put on vibration mode. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bertie. I also hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. And I extend a warm welcome to our panelists, Anu, Taslim, and Shirshendu joining us virtually. So we will be trying to demystify synthetic biology for journalists and science communicators. So for me, synthetic biology...
Recording in progress.
I started registering synthetic biology as a journalist when I started reading and hearing about plastic-eating bacteria. Okay, so I mean, there has been a lot of research around that. I don't know how far we have come, which research projects are realistically possible in the real world. And also there has been a lot of buzz regarding the Synthetic Human Genome Project, which offers a lot of hope in terms of producing disease-resistant cells, but also has ethical considerations like designer babies. So starting with, I would like to ask Anu, so what problem in the real world can SynBio realistically solve in the next decade? And what technical and scientific challenges might you
First of all, I'd like to thank SJAI and Pooja for inviting me to be a part of this synthetic biology panel. Synthetic biology is the use of engineering to design and learn and deploy biological systems for a certain purpose. And in terms of, this sounds very theoretical, but the whole point is not looking at biology as biology, but to apply engineering principles. And engineering is all about looking at things bottom up and making them useful for a societal gain. So some of the real world impact problems that synthetic biology can solve actually span 3 different realms. The first being very close to my heart, that's human health. And in human health, you can look at cancer. A lot of CAR T cell therapies have come up. You can look at gene therapy. In gene therapy, an example would be sickle cell anemia. And the last but not the least, in human health, you could think about using synthetic biology methods to overcome antimicrobial resistance, which has become the next pandemic after COVID. The next real-world problem that synthetic biology can offer solutions in is planetary health and climate, where you can reduce carbon emissions by designing microbes to capture the CO2. And also bioremediation. Some very interesting problems include cleaning up the environment that synthetic biology can focus on. The last but not the least is a very engineering-oriented real-world impact, and that is in making sustainable chemicals. So you can get involved, use synthetic biology to look at sustainable manufacturing, where you can design microbes to make your product of interest, and therefore you end up with a clean and green process. So what is the next part of the question? So in terms of the scientific and technical challenges, each of these problems that I mentioned, as you can just imagine, they span almost everything that we use in day-to-day life. And so the challenges are immense, they are very varied and diverse. But the first principle of synthetic biology is to design. And to design, you need to understand your system. So just getting that vast amount of knowledge of any biological system that you want to design would be the first scientific challenge. And then the technical challenge there would be to then use this knowledge and re-engineer or reverse engineer back a system with the same properties or better properties than what you would want. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. And to Tasleem, my question is, what signals tell you that SynBio innovation is ready for the real-world markets?
Thank you. Thank you, Pooja and SJAI, for the invitation. Great to be here, and very interesting sessions before lunch. So on this, I believe I think the couple of comments that I think Anu mentioned is clearly synthetic biology is already delivering, to be honest. If I may say so, we all are using biology concepts for addressing many things, right? For many years we have been, to be honest, all biological drugs that we are having for all these years, all vaccines are produced in some sort of organisms. And they're meant to produce more. They're meant to produce in good quality, pure quality, and then we are having it. We are having it for decades. It's just that the term synthetic biology somehow, kind of adds connotation, which people kind of take it too literally and too seriously. I think somehow we have to, possibly tone it down, that version of it. But we have been doing it many years. So we have been taking drugs, we have been taking vaccines, which is nothing but actually synthetically produced biological molecules which we are using for drug, prophylactic vaccines, and many other things. That is one. The second component, the cancer that Anu talked about, the cell therapy, the entire phenomena, the world is actually shaken, and with the advancement of cell therapy, how it is becoming the go-to things where really difficult cancer, be solid cancers and many other cancers, people are being really optimistic that people can actually do it with CAR T and CAR NK, not only different kind of cells that we talk about. It's all just to use the original concepts of biology of lymphocytes, of T cells and NK cells, and understand what I can add to make them a little bit more efficacious in treating tumor. That is already happening, including in India. So in health, it has been happening. In agriculture, it is already happening. We have many plants, including cotton in India and brinjal and many other things which have come up, which have been built to actually produce much better outcomes against specific conditions that they can do well. And globally also it has been there. And we did it years back, decades back, not necessarily in the lab, but we did it selective breeding, which was nothing but that, to get the traits that we wanted. It's just the molecular biology techniques where suddenly we think it's bad. but it's just that it, and evolution does it as well. So that's already there. We are using it and so on. And the last thing that she talked about, bioremediation. We are using bacteria which are specific and selecting them to take over the oil spills. We have been able to take care of the sludge. We have been taking care of other many organisms which have been able to do it. So synthetic biology as a field has been around, has been delivering. One thing that has happened, it has not taken off big time. And the reason it has not taken off big time is possibly a little bit of conundrum that is attached to that because of the terminology that it actually holds. And someday we could do it. But going forward, it will be fantastic. If I may close with one example from our campus, traditionally dyes were built chemically, right? Then which were brought in from a perspective of, you could do it, but then you're using so much of water in it to do textile dyeing and so on. People attempted to get the dyes from plants or agriculture, but you can't do scale up in plants agriculture. How big of the farms you can have to make it? Now people are able to do it in bacteria. So you're built to do it. People are doing it, and the water consumption has gone down to 120 at 125th. That is millions and zillion gallons of water that we are talking about, that just because of the change of thing that we have been able to do. So it's, as a field, it is right here. I think very exciting and something we can build on that.
Thank you, Taslim. So Shirshendu, my next question is for you. So why does translational science often get stuck between lab and impact, especially in healthcare?
Thank you, Pooja, and thanks, Shubhra, for this invite today. I'm very my sincere apologies. I'm not able to join you all in person. I was hearing from Taslim when he was speaking to me in between lunch that it were exciting sessions, well covered. And I especially liked these science solutions. Journalism in a fragmented world is very critical now, and communication plays a very critical role in letting science to the community and to the people at large. And that is very working in funding agencies. We always tell that you have to have a good communication strategy to communicate the findings to the world. I'll take a minute before I answer your question, Pooja. I think both Anu and Taslim spoke very broadly on synthetic biology and covered all the major points. One thing which is very important in one of the, synthetic biology right now covers all our, day-to-day activities in life. You talk about health, very well described by Anu and Taslim. We know a lot of things. We are working on health, CAR T-cell therapy, personalized medicine, as well as precision medicine. Then you go to environment, degradation, sludge management. Synthetic biology plays a role. Food security, which is one of the other critical elements where it plays a role. And also biofuels, which is coming up in a big way now. Synthetic biology has a role to play there as well. And a lot of, experiments have been done and shown that how we can slowly, mix biofuels with, hydrocarbons and see how we can literally reduce carbon footprint as we move ahead. So I think it is, just nothing to, say. It is a well answered question that synthetic biology will be a way forward as we move in all aspects of our daily life. Coming back to your question, Pooja, on what are the key challenges, when it comes to convert a basic scientific outcome from basically a lab shelf or a published paper to a process or a product or which it can impact society. I think first critical element here is, how science can be translated is how good is the team which we need to do. The first thing is we call it 360-degree innovation in our innovation journey. And translation, as you call, is the valley of death, because you can prove it in a test tube or a conical flask, but when you take it from there to at a scale where you cross the valley of death, or if I talk to in a more technical ways, moving from TRL 3, 4 to higher levels of TRLs, the main challenge is how you build a team around your innovation. I foresee the team around your innovation. Biology, as very rightly said by Anu in the beginning, what is synthetic biology is a combination of biology and engineering. I would add a couple of more things into it is something like regulatory issues might be added there, IP issues might be added there, business plan development might be added there, exit strategy to your innovation might be added there. So, as a scientist, I think Tasleem, Anu, all are at heart scientists. We can do good science. But when we have to translate that science, we might need an engineer to understand how to scale it up, to create a reactor, to create a process, to design an engineering design to scale it up. I have to build a team around the engineer. Once you do that, you need to see, science has to be successful, it has to have a business plan behind it. So I might need a person who understands the business logic, whether my innovation will be a business model at the end. So I need to talk to somebody who understands business around that. Then, is there a patent issue around? It is a very, congested innovation. A lot of people are working. What are the patent challenges around that? So a legal framework, a person who understands patent laws needs to work around that. And finally, if it is a vaccine, diagnostics, or drug, or something, a transgenic plant, as Tasleem said, you need, what are the regulatory things, environmental challenges you need to walk through. So, the main thing for a success of a concept or a POC from the lab to the field, or the lab to the bench to the bedside, is you have to build a good team. And as a funding agencies, when we look at proposals, especially the translational proposal, if we don't see a good team, science might be good, you might have published a good science in good scientific journal, but to translate that, a team is very, very essential to see how it moves forward. Now in India, we have various mechanisms to construct that team. And if you permit me, in the next set of questions, I can elaborate that, how that team can be constituted, how you need mentors to do that. I think one of the, one of the pillars of innovation and incubation is Tasleem is sitting between two of you, and I think he leads one of the leading incubators in the country. So I think we have mechanisms to create teams now, and I think the researchers should work with such type of incubators where you can walk in, and we literally are supporting such type of platforms where teams can be created, because they understand end-to-end solutions, how to take it forward. I think that is the biggest challenge we face together, is the team building and how to take innovation literally from the bench to bedside. I am sorry for the long answer, but I think this is what is needed, and we should work around that. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Shishendu. And I was about to follow up this question, and you mentioned it regarding the regulatory frameworks and the IP. So my question now to the panelists is, in terms of regulatory frameworks, where do we stand right now? I mean, how can we ensure that India does not fall behind other synbio economies? And what kind of barriers do startups and researchers face in terms of IP, procurements, talent? Any of you can answer? Shishendu?
See, now, for a startup or an innovator, I think regulatory systems are very, very very clearly defined. And various organizations, if you see from the life sciences side, DBT, BIRAC, through their incubators like Tasleem's CCAM and other venture centers and other, they have created a window of, they call a window of hand-holding the startups or innovators, how to navigate the, regulatory pathway. Similarly, ICMR has created MedTech Mitra to help you, where, and the BIRAC's first hub is one of the very important, where I'm absolutely in line with you that, startups will not be able to, or research will not be able to understand the regulatory, pathways for, say, diagnostics, what is the regulatory pathway, for vaccines, what is the regulatory pathway, for a transgenic plant, how you navigate, RCGMs and GESEs for that matter. So I think, the platforms have been created now where the academic researchers, startups can go through the incubator and get their issues resolved. In the regulatory agencies also, there have been very strong element of handholding to the researchers, startups, and the mid-sized companies who can come there and get it sorted out and get a path forward. There are bottlenecks. I don't say that it is a very smooth journey, and Tasneem will agree with me in that. But, there have been processes now built in. For example, I can tell you one thing. I'll come back to you. Let Anu answer, and then I'll come back.
Please go ahead.
No. Tasleem knows me. I give very long answers, so I will break here and I'll come back to you if you miss something.
There was just a thought that came to my mind while you were talking about all the regulatory compliance, is that we need a risk-tiered approach. Like, say, if I want to engineer a non-pathogenic pathway in a non-pathogenic yeast, say I want to make ethanol, alcohol from yeast, then the regulations for that have to be different from when I want to engineer a vector that is eventually going to release something into the environment. So depending on the impact on the environment, the impact on human health, and the impact industrially, based on these three different tiers, I think regulation needs to be thought of, so that you do not end up in unnecessarily regulating something that as simple as making alcohol from yeast for consumption or driving vehicles. So that would be it. One has to look at the risk versus the opportunity as well. For example, if you want to engineer a cell to be a living drug, the kind of regulation that is involved there, the ethical considerations that come up in that case will be very different from if I want to manufacture a chemical using synthetic biologies. So, yeah, that would be my take on it.
Just to add, Pooja, one sentence. I think regulators right now are very, very receptive. And for example, what rightly Pooja said is somewhere, you don't require that stringent level of regulation. If we go with scientific evidence to them, and tell them that this is what it is, I have seen that, they look at it, they will form a small committee or a discussion, and they will, try to hasten your way. So there have been mechanisms now which is getting, implemented because we need innovations to move forward. And for their regulatory is one of the hurdles which needs to be addressed very, very strongly to see innovation, especially in case of drugs, vaccines, transgenics, or engineered bacteria which is released in environment. I think there, it is a iterative process is being developed. So I think, but it is still on the way, but there has been solutions coming out. Over.
So if I had to add, I think, we do know that, we do need technologies and absolutely cutting edge technologies as we advance the society forward, right? We can't. And all technologies also come with its pros and cons. And I think developed or balanced societies are able to keep the technologies used in check by having regulatory. That is the role of regulatory per se, right? How do you actually ensure that you can prevent? There is never 100% prevention of its bad effect or side effect of any technology, to be honest. It's always around the corner. But how much can you prevent the side effects? And that's where good regulatory process would actually be. And I think all geographies and countries who have actually been at the same pace of technology advancement, if not ahead of them, have been able to allow technologies to be used in good spirit, right, going forward. I would say that for all that we talked about, there have been attempts to ensure that the regulatory processes are as advanced and in the sync with the scientific advancement. They are good, but they can be better. to be honest. They are not at the same stage of taking bold steps, not at the same stage of understanding science where the component or the world-class research is happening and the processes are happening. And I think we can always work together with everyone in the regulatory process to ensure that everyone is able to follow the most advanced work and its understanding of the implications that it comes with. Be it, this could be a central agency, this could be a decentralized agencies at the state level. It could be as good as institutional biosafety committees, which are in every institute. They also play a very important role in actually as a regulatory to ensure nothing wrong happens. And I think those things can be brought in by, and that's, I would say, this is definitely one aspect that we as a community and stakeholders, be it researchers, be it scientists, be it, I would say communication experts, journalists, administration, government, I think this aspect we can definitely work together and ensure that we constantly talk about it and understand where we are going with this technology and have a clear, very good dialogues to assess and arrive and establish that where we actually have a line and follow it and keep dynamically evolving it. It cannot be a static line. It has to evolve with time because science advances. And that dialogues have to happen very openly. Those dialogues have to actually have a very clear outcomes. That this is what we are saying today. Today, this is the point that we will not go beyond. We possibly are right now sitting with some regulatory processes which are 10 years old. Science has gone, crazy since the last 10 years, and we have not yet have the change in those guidelines. So how do we do that? And those are the things we can all together work. And I don't think there is a fault at any particular component. It's a systemic thing that we can improve ourselves upon, I would say so.
And just to add to that, regulation would eventually lead to governance, right? And I think public engagement and not just consultation, I think would be very key to any deployment of synthetic biology processes. Because as Taslim mentioned, synthetic biology hasn't delivered as much, or that is the, that is the take of the world that, we haven't really delivered. And that could happen if we have more public engagement. And I think that's where journalists like you probably come into play.
Okay. Thank you. So going from the ethics, I want to address access, right? So how do you balance open source versus IP of innovative biological designs?
I think Dr. Shishendu will like to address it for sure. That is his core domain. But coming back on that very quickly, I think, as we know, the concept of IP is largely to ensure that the inventors get an opportunity to commercialize, as simple as that. So you actually incentivize more and more people to actually build science and build technologies that they have an opportunity to commercialize eventually. Open source has a different thought process and philosophy where you say, I'll do it, but so there is one is incentivized system, one is non-incentivized system. I would say at both places, it can actually work in a manner where you actually have access much more defined. So there are many processes, even in IP-driven scenario. Access is built when you are able to use science to ensure that access can be based on many things. Access can be based on the last mile outreach, affordability, and many other components to it, right? So there are many ways that science is actually allowing. So I'll give you an example. I think we began with the CAR-T story, right? What does CAR-T or cell therapy for cancer costing globally right now? I'm sure you know about it, but just to, it's more or less costing around $400,000 to $500,000 globally, right? India has right now something that has come, with complete package is costing around $150,000, right? So 1/3. We have some of our innovators building it to bring it to $10,000 to $15,000. And that's what science and technology can do in terms of access. I'm just saying. So it's not that only open source can actually provide you access. Even IP can actually do it because then there is incentive for that innovator to do it at that, but do it at volume. So they get the returns for them to sustain the business and take it forward, but otherwise not. So I think both models, IP-driven model and open source-driven model, has ways to get to access. but it is very much dependent on the scaffolds around it to make it happen. It's heavily dependent, of course, it's a long-term discussion for us to get into, but there are many other scaffolds which actually even have, like CSI started a fantastic effort called OSDD, Open Source Drug Discovery Platform. It needed much more scaffolds to actually get it to the level where it can have drugs coming out of it, which is accessible. So those are the components I said. I am a firm believer that even IP-driven technologies has tremendous strength coming from India to be the solution provider in terms of access to not only global north but also global south, when you actually build appropriate IPs with a clear identification of the targets.
So I think if you have an IP-driven process that you want to deploy indigenously, I think that's where the team that Shishindu talked about would be very critical, because the CAR T-cell therapy that's indigenous to India that Tasleem was just referring to is the next CAR-19 for lymphomas, developed by IIT Bombay along with a bunch of doctors. And their team is an exemplary example of how you can bring state-of-the-art, cutting edge in the West to the global South. So I will let Shishindu discuss what kind of a team do you actually need to put together to be competitive, to be globally competitive and bring in therapies, living drug therapies in India, which I think is a very huge need. Not just for cancer, CAR-T is just for cancer and for autoimmune diseases, but for a lot of diseases, for gene therapies, for rare diseases that probably there are just a small percentage of our population that actually need. So I'll leave it to Shishindu to delineate that.
So Pooja, I think it is a good debate. Being a lawyer, I can argue it for and against both of them. Open source as well as IP. And I'll take one example to show you. The COVID vaccine, which came out. We developed six types of COVID vaccines. And I think India had one of the countries in the world which had all the platforms. And it was developed at, the companies which, the 5-6 companies, Bharat Biotech, Serum, then Cadila, then Biologically E, Genova, all the. Now, you see, and I was privileged to be in the mission COVID Suraksha that time, so we funded those vaccines, though IP was filed, but it was, when we funded it, we said you have to make it at a very affordable and accessible to the country and the countries which we want to give it to. If we would have not done that, we would have not been able to immunize our 1.3 billion people in our country, because if you see Moderna and Pfizer made around 4 billion, am I right to say 4 billion doses of vaccines? And we needed 2.3 billion doses of vaccine in our country itself. So if Mission COVID Suraksha and Government of India was not very proactive in allowing these companies to fund these companies to de-risk that, to develop vaccine, and it would not have been possible. Though they filed IPs, but they were ensured that the IPs doesn't come in delivering those vaccines in the country. Now, flipping the page to the other side, if we want to develop a very strong, competitive innovation ecosystem in our country, IP is essential. And de-risking of IP is what, as my organization, Wadhwani Foundation, the Gates Foundation, Wellcome Trust, and Government of India, through its various mechanism of innovation funding, do it. In that, we ensure that you file an IP, which is in your name, but when you bring out a product for our country and things like that, it has to be affordable and accessible. So that mechanism de-risks the investment which the startup or a mid-sized company does, and the product is made as affordable and accessible to the community which needs it. And that is how what Tasleem And Anu talked about two of the innovations on CAR-T cell, which we were part of supporting. That is how it was, the price was made down. So there are instruments and that's how a team approach is needed where, you get the right support, right de-risking mechanism of your innovation. If I invest everything from my pocket, I will definitely, as a company, would like to get the benefit back, and then the price goes up, the effort may not be accessible. But we have to have a de-risking path in place. But on the other hand, we need to support innovations. Otherwise, these companies will not survive, and the innovation ecosystem will not move ahead. So I think it is from both sides we have to look at it. We have to have an affordable, accessible solution, but also on the way, we need to support their innovations so that they can stand up in long run to move forward. So that is how we need to have a very, very balanced situation to take innovation forward. So that's what it is. I don't know whether I made sense, but that is what my thinking is.
Yeah, thank you, Shirshendu. I have so many questions, but we'll get to the audience question and answers, and I hope some of my questions you'll be asking them, and I'll have my answers. So before, I just wanted to address, since this is a science journalists and communicators workshop, I wanted to ask all of you, when reporting on synthetic biology, what are the things that journalists or communicators should keep in mind? How to spot something which may be hype, and also, one thing journalists should stop when covering synthetic biology, and things a journalist might miss while covering synthetic biology. From your experience, of the news, if you can offer some perspective.
I wou't have any advice, but rather a thought that possibly from being a scientist, I think scientists come with some level of optimism when they develop something, when they work on something. Similar, all professionals do for their own work, without a doubt. I think one of the things that could happen when something like this happens, it would be good for both be on the same page in terms of what that science aims to achieve and what are the possible downsides of it. Many times what has happened is that the connect is not there between the two, the one who has done the work and one who possibly covers the work. And that a little bit of distance of that connect builds different perception. And that can cause some level of, I would say, outcome, which is possibly we can avoid, right? So because sometimes scientist doesn't want to talk to a journalist when they reach out, possibly may happen other way around as well. It's very important both of them are on the same page when the science is being covered, and they agree on a broader thing, and at least if there is any information that is available on either of two, in terms of guidelines, in terms of implication, in terms of global practices, if that gets assessed, because considering the way technology is growing, I think there are a lot of things which are not as, white and black, but discussion could help to actually achieve a right perception on what is being done rather than not. And I think my observation from far, that's why it's a thought, my observation from far is that our inability to have the simple connect on such topics is causing the outcome which we can avoid.
In my opinion, not just journalists, I think even the public in general who doesn't work in science, when you hear of this new technology called synthetic biology or CRISPR or any such life-changing in some sense or genome editing technology, it's not click and print. It's not instantaneous. And we are very far away from, artificial life. We are not going to create a Frankenstein. So I think this trust needs to be built. So if science journalism can help us build that trust, that would be great in my opinion. Another thing that I think of quite often is that the process of science, which I think we discussed in the first panel as well. The process of science is very rigorous and it is very boring, to be very honest. And it requires, it's a day-to-day grind. And I think sometimes that is lost either in this solution story or in the breakthrough stories that science journalism tries to cover. The nuances of uncertainty in science, the rigor, the statistics, I think that needs to be brought about. We are not here, we are here to advance knowledge and to eventually bring our knowledge to society. And we hope that science journalism and communication can help us do that.
Shirshendu, if you can quickly add to that before we head to...
Well, see, I don't have anything much to add. Both Taslim and Anu has covered everything. Only thing, one sentence I would say is that communicate science in a very easy language to everybody, so that they could feel the achievement which science has made in India, and also what are the benefits which are coming out from these. I think that I would like to add. Over.
Okay, thank you. So now we will be taking questions from the audience. So if anyone has any question, please raise your hand and we'll find you. Okay.
I'll probably go. Thank you. That was lovely. I think what I learned from this is getting into the brain of a scientist. I'm not saying that.
Can I see the auditorium also so that I can understand who is asking the question?
Yeah. Maybe you can identify my voice.
Oh, Shubhra. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just saying that was a lovely way to get into the brains of what you think, what your challenges are. Now let me put you in the spot and say, first, Taslim maybe, from whatever Anu and Shirshendu have said, what's the news point that you take back today, if you were a journalist? And the same question is for both of you.
News point.
Just one story.
I think I would say that clearly the tremendous widespread impact of synthetic biology as a field and its potential going forward with appropriate checks and balance is something that I would love to cover, right? Because it's a gold mine, a technology which is helping us fight cancer, have agriculture, environment, right? It's across components. So it's fantastic. Would love to cover its potential, its impact, how it can solve, food security, environmental components, global warming by taking away the carbon from the atmosphere. So it's impact, but important component is that how it has to be, with appropriate regulated capability. That would be my comment.
So if synthetic biology is the gold mine, then I think the products, the technology, the diagnostics, everything is the jewelry that we can make. And I think that would be my news point from what I've heard from Taslim and Shirshendu.
I think Shubhra always brings you in spot. No, I think the main takeaway will be how synthetic biology is revolutionizing the entire, bringing together biology, engineering, and other domains together, and literally taking us to the next level of security from in health, improving your health, food security, environment, converting you from, we are getting vegetarian meat now and things like that. These are the things I think which needs to be brought out in a very simple way to create the takeaway from this. Over.
Yes.
So, as you all were talking about how synthetic plants have reduced the dye-making process, like when you shift
A little louder, please.
how from plants to when you shift it to microorganisms, the dye-making process significantly cut down on precipitation. I feel like there are many more such innovation when it comes to agricultural part of it, but there is also this whole narrative behind using synthetic agricultural product that they are not as nutritious or it affects the nutritional quality. But when you look at the research is varying because you are talking in terms of tons versus like some grams, right? So how does one tackle that narrative if from a science perspective, I guess, that using synthetic products is bad for your health, but it may or may not be true depending on a lot of factors. So something along that.
No, absolutely. I think it's very important, and that's what, in terms of agriculture, consumption, people globally, people have had long-term studies in terms of consumption of synthetic biology or, derived products, agriculture, food products, and so on. And I think there have not been any, there have been always a concern, but no data to actually establish that which is a component which is there. Now, interestingly, in India, certain small things have come that within very small edits, within few exons, if you happen, you don't even consider now it's a genetically modified component. So it's allowed. So people are able to now make small, very small edits within very specific locations. And this is a progress we have made in the last couple of years in terms of allowance of having synthetic biology agri products to come in through. I would say the way to actually look at it is constantly to understand that many of the aspects of the loss of the nutrition values which have happened because of climate impact actually can be retained by actually making crops climate resilient. And that is a clear way of retaining crop productivity, but retaining nutritious values as well, because this also diminishes because of the harsh climate conditions that they actually go through. So those are also components which are built into that, and the new processes are allowing us to bring those out. But think of it, and this is very right forum to talk about it, sometimes you will have to have communication which convince different populations for the same aspect, right? There are people who actually would be convinced by this logic, which is also right, and some people will be convinced by this logic, which is also right. And that is something you will have to choose, as you say, look at the audience and then talk to them about it. So that would be that right.
And one more thing I'd like to add is that although, as Tasleem mentioned, the use of the word synthetic biology is more scarier than what it actually is. And the fact that, since the age of Mendel, we've been creating hybrid plants. We've been doing genetic engineering. We have been changing genomes. At that point, we would change small parts of genomes. We just have the power now to rewrite whole genomes. But that doesn't mean that the mango-flavored ginger that is very common in Maharashtra and down south, right, that it is a synthetic biology product. We still buy it from the farmer and we eat it. So I think we need to put things in perspective and we need to talk about it. I think public engagement is very critical. So the people whom you discuss who think that synthetic biology products are less nutritious, I think you need to, talk with them, sit them down over a cup of chai or coffee and get them to understand that, they've been doing it for many, many years. It's just a new word right now.
Tinkering with biology, probably even before we knew what genes were. I mean, things like bananas and oranges and stuff like that. They are all a product of mixing, matching, etc. But what happened that synthetic biology, the term became a bad word? Was there how did that shift come about? Like, why do we today? I have been to the other conferences where we've been talking about genetically modified plants, and there have been a group of people who've kind of disrupted a panel saying that, no, how can you be talking about this? So, how did this come about that synthetic biology became a scary? Do we even know?
Again, you very. So
I think if you think of scientists, this was a very cool word, synthetic biology. We can create synthesized biology. So think about the excitement that scientists and the group of scientists actually built that up. It was very nice. But if you now look at it and say from the lay person perspective, they suddenly says this is not real. And hence it can has danger. Right? Outside, if there is a tree which is not real, it's a plastic tree. Clearly you actually start thinking differently about it. Right? And that is what it is actually bringing. Synthetic means you have actually, people are saying you are manipulated, you have done this, but what actually is required is improved biology, right? Targeted biology, using biology concepts to do that. And those are the changes. So why scientists use the term within their community to talk about what their field would be called, when you take it to layperson, and the layperson's perception of assessing it actually became because of some strongly because of the word synthetic linked to that as well. And that was, according to me, something that can have a long-term invisible effect, which is very, very difficult to undo unless you do a good campaign around it. Yeah, thanks.
And if you flash back to the first panel again, the fact that you want a technological fix, a basic science that is moving knowledge ahead, which was synthetic biology, if you want a technological fix, if you start wanting that, if you want societal impact, and based on what Taslim just said, in synthetic biology we create. So that itself, creates a lot of conundrum, a lot of public dialogue, right? Will we create humans? Will we create new organisms? Will we play God? And, so this brings in to the aspect of designer babies that Pooja started the conversation with. And that is what I think, that fear of the unknown, what science is actually about, the unpredictability, the uncertainty, right? The fear of the unknown is what makes synthetic biology scary. But it's, in my opinion, a lot of it is old wine in new bottle.
I just want to quickly say that when it first registered for me, when I was looking, Renaissance painting of still life, so what a watermelon looked back then and what a watermelon looks like now. So, that stark contrast, makes you question, should we be playing God? As a lay person back then. And another example is, a lot of dog breeds, I think it was a pug, what a pug looked back in early 1900s compared to what it looks right now, and how some breeds have been modified for, being more enticing to the human eye, and what that has done to their body structures, right? So, yeah, and one last question, please. Yeah.
Hi, am I audible? Yes. Yeah. So my question is more on the innovation factory sort of side. And we know that the innovation or the rate of innovation, funded innovation, is far more outside of India. And there's also a very clear understanding that a market for synthetic biology products and processes, like India is clearly a market for that. So is there some sort of tension both on the research side, government funding side, about wanting to make sure that this research and products that come out of it respect the demographic of the market itself? Because those pressures will always be there. There's always going to be some talk about tariffs and allowing innovation ecosystem, or at least funding to come in from there. But you may also need to balance that. And what I see this is, when you communicate or report about it, this is very hard, because the moment you try and bring that conversation into the innovation ecosystem, you start seeing startups or people coming out of lab saying, but if you tell that, like, it's almost like an anathema. If you tell that, then funding dries up. But how do you manage this sort of tension where you need to respect the demographic, but for that, the products can't just come in from outside?
Can I?
Yes.
I think first thing is, if you see the last trends of funding, the biofuel funding, the CRISPR-Cas funding, the CRISPR, which both of Anu and then the transgenic funding if you see, it's all started from the government funders and then philanthropic funders, all together jumped into it and funded it. Funding is not a problem. Only thing is the science has to be strong. When as a funder we look at it, is science has to be strong, your rationale of science has to be strong, and then we look at the public good out of it. So I think what all has to be looked into is the public good, the rationale, the impact, and the the exit strategy from it. I think if this is looked at it, I think we are moving ahead very properly. Of course, the ethical research has to be done. It has to clear the regulatory pathway, and it has to move in a certain way to come out into the society. If that is looked into, as a funder, we always look at good science to be funded and which literally impacts the society at large. Tasneem and Anu, you can add on to it.
So I think Dr. Shendu has already addressed one component of your question. The other thing possibly you brought out was that they can't just come in to another geography, I think, if I heard you correctly. I think absolutely fair. I think no geography wants it to be a kind of a dump yard for products which they do not want, and that's where the barriers come in, that's where the other regulatory component comes in, and so on. But I think as long as there are processes which are good for us, like the vaccine that one talked about, it was built in AstraZeneca, manufactured here at Serum, that many of us had it, right? And that's what you say as a global collaboration, right? So those components are something very, very beneficial, and many things. India's right now is a manufacturing of 60 to 70% of global vaccines. It's a global collaboration. We do it and share it with the world at large, including in generics and of course many other things, aquaculture and so on. So I think those are the components. Of course, the barriers and the filters are built in to ensure that it doesn't have any, ethical, any other issues with the geography and the people related to that, and that's the government's play to ensure that that doesn't happen, I would say. I hope I answered your question.
That was very well put by Tasneem. I just want to add that science, the science of biology, science of a biological cell is very agnostic in many ways in terms of its function and mechanisms. What really gets changed by the demographic is when you look at the genetic component. So there are a lot of things that can move from continent to continent when you try to develop a product. And if you keep in mind what are the factors in that cell that are defined by a specific ethnography or demographic, you can overcome that. So that would be, my last word on this.
I'm sure many of you have many more questions. Unfortunately, due to a paucity of time, you'll have to take it up with our panelists after the session. So thank you so much, Shishendu, for joining us.
Pleasure. My sincere apologies to Shubhra and the entire
No, not at all. I mean, in fact,
in person.
Yeah, thank you for joining us virtually, despite your demanding schedule. And thank you, Tasneem and Dr. Anu. Yeah. So thank you so much, and thank you, SJAI, for organizing this conference, and particularly this panel, Synthetic Biology, like demystifying the concept. Thank you.
Wonderful moderation.
Thanks for moderating it wonderfully, Dr. Pooja.